All right, hey everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. It feels like it's been a super long time since I've actually done a reaction video, although it's only been 2 weeks, so it hasn't been that long a time, but I guess it just has felt like long because so much has been going on. So before we dive into the video proper, just a few little introductory things to get out of the way first. So you might be hearing a low humming or buzzing sound in the background. That is because I do have a fan on in the room. It has been super, super hot out here lately. There's been a heat wave going through. I'm basically cooking inside my own skin, so I need a fan on to stay alive, or else I will collapse during this video. When I checked it out, shouldn't be too distracting having the fan on. I can hear myself pretty clearly on the recorded videos over it, so shouldn't be too bad, but I thought I'd just mention it in case anyone was wondering what that noise was. But yeah, apart from that, I'm going to do my best to get that Yamato video out today, depending on time and everything else. I planned to do some work on it yesterday, but kind of got sidelined by other stuff. So if I can, I'll get it out today. If not, by tomorrow at the latest, hopefully that will be out. And I think, as some of you are familiar, I think Oda's newest editor had apparently said in a YouTube video or stream or something recently that they got really emotional over one of the upcoming chapters of One Piece. I saw there was some debate over if it was One Piece 986 or 987. I think a lot of people are saying 987, but I'm not sure. So we'll see if that affects anything in this chapter reading it. But yeah, apart from that, nothing more to say. So let's dive into One Piece chapter 986, My Name. Oh boy, have gang badges, all my family, volume 31, escape from the Navy, and the weird man calling himself our father. Oh man, I kind of feel sorry for Pound. He's stuck in the ground for who knows how long. Almost got killed during Whole Cake Island saving his daughter. Barely managed to get away and sail all the way to where she was. And he's so happy to be reunited with them. And they're just like, all right, weirdo, we don't care what the hell you're here for. And they just leave him behind. Oh man, I don't know if this is where it's gonna end with the volume, because I'll admit I would get kind of annoyed if Oda's just like, yeah, fuck Pound. I did this whole fake out death scene for him and I bought him back and I went through all this shit. Now he's just gonna be like, nope, goodbye, Pound. We're never gonna see you again. I'd be a little bit annoyed, but honestly, whatever. This was amusing. So we see Onigashima rear entrance. We have, and now, best of luck to you, Sir Kinemon, Sir Denjiro, and to you as well. And you see Kinemon and Denjiro finally have made their way to the rear entrance with the other scabbards. They're all lined up, looking grim and serious, arms crossed, as these two are walking up. Ah, God, I knew it. So we see Kanjuro lying in a pool of his own blood, and I swear to God, if Oda makes another stupid ass joke about, oh, no, it wasn't actually his blood, it was a pool of red ink that he was lying there because, he's a showman and he had to kind of put that in there because he's so extra, just like he did with Cracker. I'm going to get kind of pissed off if he does that again. But I do not believe Kanjuro's dead. We'll get to that at the end when I review it, but I do not buy that Kanjuro's dead. And you see a flashback to when they're all children palling around with Oden, with like, yeah, ha, 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 we have no money, Lord Oden. What will we do for dinner? He's like, all right, time to work. He's like, go into town and beg. And you see baby Kawamatsu with Kanjuro's little pen sword playing around with Dogstorm and Kiku. Super adorable. And you see Kinemon kind of just scowling as he looks down at Kanjuro's apparently dead corpse. And you see him again, he's like, yeah, from the flashback. And you see Raizo bawling his eyes out. I don't know. We'll get to that at the end as well. We'll talk about that. bawling his eyes out over the death of his friend. And we see Kiku, as we saw her last chapter, also, crying. She sees Conjuro's kind of corpse lying there after she cut him down. What the hell? And as they're stepping over him, I think Kinemon goes, I know it's been hard for you all, and you see a whack next to Conjuro's body. I don't know if that's supposed to be like an indication, like it's a painting or something else, but there's just a little sound effect going whap, which makes it seem even more likely he's not dead. And you see Denjiro finally noticing Izo, and he goes, Izo! And Kinemon's like, Izo? And goes and clasps hands in a very meme-like format with, so this is where you've chosen to make your last stand. And Izo's like, I've missed too many chances for a glorious and meaningful death. And Kinemon goes, very well, let's hurry. As he tugs his swords up and gets ready to go. And you have two Samurai of Orochi as they head inside Onigashima proper. And you see that they made quick work of Kanjuro and his little scrubs. As you have Kaido going, will you die here like your liege, or will you conquer the world with us? I'm familiar with the great loyalty of samurai. If you choose to fight us and die, I give you my praise. All the samurai murmuring as you see Orochi's beheaded, or Orochi's head just lying where it was, cut down last time. And you have the former Oniwa Banshu captain Fukurokuju, who goes, the 5,000 members of the Oniwa Banshu, the ninja force of Wano, are at your beck and call. And you have finally the scruffy-looking samurai guy gets a name. I think, I'm not sure if I introduced him before. Goes, and the samurai of Wano, 5,000 strong, offer you our allegiance. As you have former Mimawari Gumi captain Hote. Suppose that's Oda's take on the Shinsen Gumi from Japan. And you have all of Fukurokujo's ninja assassins let out a breath of relief that they're not going to have to face off against Kaido. And you see them going, poor Shogun Orochi. Well, whatever. And you see one of the gifters going around, putting an arm around one of the ninjas and going, ah, hey, we didn't want to have to fight you guys anyway. And Hyogoro's getting all mad as he goes, have they no warrior's pride? And one of his men's like, boss, Hyogoro, stop. And you see Lin going, ma, ha, 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 ha. So we cleared up the manpower question. Keep them nice and snug down there, as she talks to her little yokai homies. And they go, yes, mama. And you see, let go, as you see one of them's captured Nami and is kind of encircling her and holding her. And one's captured Carrot. As Carrot cries out, Nami's like, as long as they don't spot Shinobu, we've still got a chance. She can still save Momo. You see a swish, swish, as Shinobu's just hopping through the banquet hall. And she goes, sorry, Onami, I'm going on ahead. Lord Oden saw the situation clearly. He knew that vanquishing Orochi would change nothing. Even 20 years ago, the true enemy was Kaido. And you see Kaido going up to Momo on the cross and going, whoa, ro. Hey, kid. Now Wano has neither a shogun to lead it, nor samurai to serve him. The fools in the flower capital are carrying on with their festival, unaware that this is their final night of freedom. And you see in the capital, one's wearing a little kitsune mask off to the side. As they're waving these little flags and dancing around, you see these taiko drums being played as everyone's partying and celebrating. And you see Kaido continuing, I always had this nagging doubt in my mind. How could a little coward like you possibly be the son of Kozuki Oden? This execution is meant to bring an end to the old Wano. But now that I think back upon that day 20 years ago in the burning castle, you did not answer my question. Flashback to where Kaido was holding a little kid over the ledge as Momo screaming, I'm going to fall, it's too high. And he goes, what is your name? And he goes, if you are not the son of Kozuki Oden and Toki, then I'll call off this execution and offer a full apology for the confusion. As Momo was silently contemplating this, as Kaido puts his club down and goes, so I ask you one more time, boy, what is your name? And you see a wah as the gifters and the other guys are going, "You're so kind, Master Kaido. One little white line, that kid gets to live." And you see them going, "You better come up with a funny name, kid." Wah. And as Momo's hanging there, he goes, "My name?" And you see Yamato and Luffy just punching their way through more of the goons. As Yamato goes, "What? You mean that little boy is the real Kozuki Momonosuke?" And Luffy goes, "Yep." And all the vassals are still alive. And Yamato's like, "What?" And he's like, "Now let me." Oh, Luffy's like, "Now let me take off these off like I promised. You just want them removed, right?" And Yamato's, "Actually, just to be sure, take them off and throw them far away. I don't think they'll explode, but just in case." And Luffy's like, "Whew," as he calms himself down and does the whole new wave hockey to crush the cuffs, and he takes them off and whips them off to the side, Raleigh style, with a whip. And Yamato's like, "They're off!" And you see his who's who coming back with his cronies as he goes, "The performance stage, you say?" It's like Yamato, Straw Hat, Luffy are heading towards the stage. And you see Ulti rushing towards it, going, "You'll pay for this, Yamato." And you see Usopp and Chopper running off into what looks like the storeroom. There's these giant barrels behind them and these giant like drinking gourds. And Chopper's like, "Usopp, we're going the wrong way." And Usopp's like, "Hey, you heard that announcement? They're gonna kill Momo." And you see poor Chopper, tears streaming down his face as using the periscope, going, "There's danger all around, Usopp. Are these giants?" And Usopp's like, "Trust in the toughness of General Frankie's exterior." And you see the drunk Goonies going, "Intruders! Gotta report! Gah!" As Kawamatsu and Dogstorm and the rest of the scabbers come in and start cutting them down. And you see Law and Beppo at some other point in the castle. And you see Kid reveling in the bloodshed. He's taking out some more goons. And you see Zoro looking a little bit worse for the wear as he's doing the same. Damon Spade says, "Hello, hello, Damon Spade. Welcome to the chat. Hope you're enjoying this chapter thus far." And you see Momonosuke flashing back to his mother, telling him, "You are meant to one day carry this nation on your shoulders." And you see when he and Luffy were fighting, as Luffy told him, "One day, I'm going to be king of the pirates." And you flash back to Oden in the bath where he goes, "What's that? Where's your name came from? Where your name came from?" And you have Momo calling out, "Momo is a name that means second to none. My name is Kozuki Momonosuke, the man who will be Shogun of Wano." And you have all the gifters and be like, "Huh?" And Kaido just getting mad as they go, "Wah!" As they all just start laughing at him. And you see Momo just bawling his eyes out as he's thinking, "Father, mother, I wanted to be a man worthy of facing you in the afterlife." As he's crying, "Wah!" He goes, "Hiyori, I wish I could have seen you again. I don't want to die. I don't want to cry. It is shameful for a warrior to cry in front of others." And as Kaido's getting his club ready, you see on the stage next to her, Big Mom and the others are, you see this giant explosion and a whoa! I will say I love when Oda goes with the exaggerated faces as you see Luffy and Yamato coming through the center of the explosion with Yamato going, "I can't believe that cow gorilla. He really was going to kill me," as Yamato just crying with his exaggerated, "I can't believe it" face. And Yamato goes, "Well, that settles it. I no longer think of him as a father." As Yamato's getting mad, Luffy goes, "Wait, Yamao." And you have, "What just happened? Did something explode?" And Yamato's like, "It's Yamato." And he goes, "Well," and Luffy goes, "Well, we made it in time, but we're not the ones who start this battle." Boy, we'll have to talk about that, I guess, a little bit later. And then you see the scabbards rushing in from behind Kaido as they knock down the wall. And King goes out, "The Akazai Samurai!" Queen's like, "Where did they come from?" And Jack goes, "The Mink Kings, they're alive?" And you see Izo just shoots King's sword out of his hand. That was badass, I'll admit, as Izo just puts the gun in front of his face. And you have Raizo doing his little jutsu pose. As you have Kawamatsu pulling out his blade, Kiku getting the same with hers, Dogstorm doing the same with hers. And you see a meow, and Cat Viper comes in and kicks, I assume, the club out of Kaido's hands. And you see a furious looking Ashura Doji, veins popping on his face as Kaido goes, is that you, Kyoshiro? And you see him thinking, surrender your name and be as a child. Oh my god, all right. While I like Oda's exaggerated faces, Denjiro doing like the whole, like making his face go angry and fox-like just looks ridiculous. I cannot take him seriously as an angry pose when he really looks like a little kid that's trying to make you mad. I just cannot take that seriously. I'm gonna get so much hate for this because I know it's supposed to be an emotional moment, but that is so ridiculous and dumb looking. I just can't. And you have Kinemon also furious, going, "Put your life into this attack." And you see Kaido angrily going, "Your swords can do nothing to me." And you see him flashing back to Oden, who's swinging in with his swords, as he said, "Never come back to Wano." And you see Kaido going, "Oden!" And Kaido's little goonies go, "Oh, this ain't the time for drinks. Grab your weapons." And you see all the Akazaya samurai calling out, "Tsunachi!" as it's a raid. As you see them all smashing into Kaido and knocking him out over the terrace, and there's a waterfall below, a river below them that he's getting knocked into. As you have next chapter hits August 10th, so there's no break next week. Thank God for that. I will say I do love this spread. You have Kinemon and Denjiro both having stabbed their swords into Kaido. You see Cat Viper trying to reach him with his claws, and Kaido just holding him back with one arm. You have Kawamatsu and Izo holding back King. As Izo's shooting at him, Kawamatsu slashing at him. And you see Ashura coming in for a blow on Kaido as well, with Raizo following Denjiro. And you see Dog Storm, I assume, stopping Jack and Queen from attacking. You see Izo coming in from behind him as they all fall over. Finally, thank God things are getting to the point where the raid is picking up. So as usual, I'll kind of go from the start to the end with my thoughts overall on the chapter. Like I said, the cover page, I'm not sure if this is where it's going to end. It'd be kind of weird for Oda to be like, yeah, Benj is just going to sail off. And then like that's going to be the end of the cover story. Because I know I saw on the news or like the announcements that there's going to be a color spread or a cover page or something for One Piece next week. So I might have to wait till the next chapter to find out. Oh no, because it usually says final volume before getting to like the final volume of the cover page. So probably have a few more left. I'm going to be really kind of annoyed though if he does. Like this is where Pound's story ends. I'm going to be kind of annoyed. Like it'll be kind of a dumb thing to do. Like all right, like off screen his death and do a fake out, bring him back, and then be like, oh, we're going to abandon him here, and then maybe I'll bring him back once Lola and Chiffon's story gets like done. Like I'm going to get annoyed with that, but that's kind of like a minor complaint. So Kinemon and Denjiro kind of being the two leaders is interesting. I still don't like Kinemon being kind of the unofficial leader of the Akazaya Nine. Never really felt like it was developed enough to make it believable. It kind of felt like Oda just said he's the leader, and everyone kind of just ceded control to him, and they're just like, all right, sure, whatever, we don't really care. You can be the leader. And I know at this point, I'm kind of sounding like a broken record. I keep saying, if Oda had only spent a little bit more time with the Scabbards in the flashback, just giving them like a few extra chapters of development to kind of flesh out their emotional bonds and their connections, a lot of stuff in these recent chapters would hit a lot harder, and it would make me personally more invested in them and their struggles. But right now, like the fact that Oda's leaning so heavily on that connection, like going back to the flashbacks with them, palling around with Oden, talking about where they're going to eat, having fun, interacting, all that stuff, like that's great. But if you don't get us invested in those characters, kind of reinforcing, hey, you remember that these guys are family, right? Remember that they're really close, right? And that they love and support one another, like the same way the Straw Hats do. It really doesn't work, though, if you don't put in the initial effort to actually showcase why their bond is so powerful and why, we should actually care about their bonds and connections with each other. And so that's why, like, moments like this where you see them coming up to Kanjuro's body, and you see Kinemon kind of having like mixed emotions of like, oh, this guy was my friend, even though he was just a traitor all along, all that. It really doesn't tug at my heartstrings. The same with like Raizo, just bawling his eyes out. Like, we haven't spent enough time with him as a character, or with the or seen him interacting with the Scabbards enough for this to carry any kind of emotional weight when they see that, oh no, we had to cut down someone we consider friends, someone we consider family for so many years, that we've been through so much with. It really falls flat, and I wish like Oda had just spent that little bit of extra time, rather than trying to rush through, to just develop the Scabbards, explore what Wano means to them, explore their bonds, explore why they were so dedicated to Oden, rather than just telling us, oh, Oden's so cool, they love him so much. Oh, you know how much they love Oden? They just love him like so much, guys. I can't tell you enough how much they love him. Like, it really is not a good substitute. So a lot of this Conjuro stuff, it's like, all right, I guess I'm supposed to be sad about him having been killed, but yeah, I really don't feel anything, which kind of brings me to the other point. I do not for a second buy that Conjuro's dead. Like, I will, if Oda at the end of Wano reveals that, he actually ultimately really is dead, like, there's not a chance in hell he's ever coming back, I'll be like, okay, I'm glad Oda's finally committing to killing off characters. But the fact he's undercut it so many times before this, with so many death fake outs and like injuries, grievous injuries that get immediately healed, like panels or chapters afterwards, with no visible detrimental long-term effects, it really kind of undercuts the tension of like, oh, this character supposedly dies or things like that. Because I keep thinking back to, Zoro after Thriller Bark and Sabaody, where the injuries from Kuma had very real detrimental long-term effects that actually affected the plot, affected the way the Straw Hats had to move and interact with certain characters. And I really miss that kind of feeling where, injuries actually meant something, whereas now it's just like, a character getting cut down or killed or getting badly beaten doesn't hold the same weight as it used to. And really, I know like everyone will say, oh, it's always been like this, etc., etc. But the fact he's kind of come down on it so much harder post time skip, when he keeps trying to play up how much of a threat these characters are supposed to be, how much of a threat the Emperors are supposed to be, how much of a threat all these new forces and powers are coming across are supposed to be. And then we see absolutely no delivery on any of that, where none of these characters have posed a seemingly legitimate threat. Like, moments like these then just get like more annoying than anything else, where it's like, all right, I guess this character's dead, only for Oda to be like, hey, this guy's back. Oh, isn't that surprising? You didn't expect that, did you? It really does diminish his storytelling. And I really wish one of his editors, someone would tell him to just knock it off and just fucking commit to it, or use a different tactic, because it really is getting overblown at this point. Damon Spade asks, so if Conjuro's actually dead, you think it was a good choice? Seems like kind of a poor resolution. Yeah, like, yeah, if he's actually dead, this would have been a bad way to kind of take him out. And like, there's a few different parts to that though, like where I'm not like, because I'm not going to take it away from the people who actually correctly predicted that Conjuro would be the traitor and gave like really solid evidence for why and how and everything, because those were good analysis videos. They did call it right. They did a really good job, so I don't want to diminish any of that. But at the same time, because we spent so little time with the Scabbards and with Conjuro and everything else, like, and because we didn't get any kind of backstory, except apart from like the surprise reveal that he's a Kurozumi as well, or like at least a branch family of the Kurozumi, and he kind of went through the same kind of oppression that Orochi went through. Like that's why the traitor thing didn't really hit for me. It's like, oh, he's suddenly just out of nowhere. It's like, oh, ha ha. Now in the middle of the boat for no reason at all, I'm just gonna suddenly reveal I am the traitor, and I'm like, okay, I guess, but like none of that impact really landed. And for him to just be like cut down like this, it feels very incomplete. Like it doesn't feel like there's a resolution to this, or a weight, or the proper weight that should be given to something as momentous as Oda made it out to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, like honestly, if this is where Conjuro ends, like if this literally is him dying, I honestly would not know what to make of it. It would feel so incomplete. And I'll just be like, I don't know. Like I had to wait to see how it plays out eventually before kind of coming to a conclusion. Because right now everything's still in flux. I don't really have a good idea, but it would just no. So we'll have to wait and see. Like if this was the way it ended, it'd be really, really dumb. But yeah, I don't know what else to say for that. So Mystic commented, yeah, it's a shit way for him to die, but it would be worse if Oda pulls some stupid bullshit. Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm kind of struggling with a little bit too here. I'm like, all right, I don't see any way that this can be resolved that doesn't make me annoyed or mad or irritated in some manner. Because I'm still going back to that little speech bubble of like thwap right after like Kinemon and Denjiro walk by Kanjuro, where it looks like there's a little bubble or something like popping next to him or next to his corpse. And I don't know that's supposed to be an indication, like foreshadowing, like, oh, this is an ink clone, and like after a while it's just gonna like dissolve or something, or it's fake or whatnot. And it turns out Kanjuro's hiding for whatever reason, or it's gonna turn out like be another Cracker situation, like I said, where it's like, oh, Kanjuro pretended to be cut, and he spilled some red ink around himself to make them think he was dead, so he could backstab them or something. But if he also, like, if he comes back, I'm gonna be annoyed. If it's a fake out, I'm gonna be annoyed. Like, this is one of the situations like Oda could have handled it better, but he doesn't seem to be able to help himself from doing these stupid little tactics of trying to pretend like there's actual tension and emotional investment, stuff like this. And that might be something I have to talk about a little bit later, because I want to talk about this because it's been brought up in fandom before about how Oda, has said that he doesn't like it when people guess his stories because he thinks that's boring or whatnot, right? And I want to talk about it eventually, because I feel like that's a terrible way to approach storytelling and to have your audience be invested in the stories and characters you're talking about. But that feels like it's going to be a bigger video. But yeah, right now I'm just like, I feel like whatever way this pans out, I'm going to be annoyed in some manner. Leaf goes, if Conjuro's really dead, Oda might choose to give him an extended flashback after he's really gone, like how he got Aiden's childhood flashback after he actually died. So this comes to another thing, because I have had a theory about this for a while, where I feel like Conjuro was eventually going to get redeemed. Like this was an idea I've had for a while, not because I like the idea of Conjuro getting redeemed and all that, but because of the tactic Oda used of kind of going with that Ace kind of plot line of, oh, this kid was just bullied and harassed, chased by people just because of who his family was, and he wasn't given a chance to be himself. And Oda, because of Oda's tendency to kind of put a sympathetic spin on villains and heroes alike, I'm definitely expecting some kind of sympathetic twist to be put on Kanjuro at some point, because I don't think Oda put in all the effort of having him be a traitor, having him be a Kurozumi, only to end his arc here and be like, yeah, that was all the extent of his story was going to be. But that's because I also talked about this, and I think a few of my Wano videos as well, where I talked about how there's been this theme of masks that insofar in this arc has been really unaddressed. And I talked about it specifically with regards to Kiku. When Hyogoro told him in the Udon prison, take off your disguises and show them who you really are. And Kiku puts on the Hanya mask, where everyone else takes off their disguises. And I talked about it back then about, because Kiku is a transgender woman, how that could potentially play into Wano and exploring themes of kind of like gender identity in a conservative society and things like that. And especially, I also mentioned this in relation to the Ebisu citizens, where Shinobu outright says that the smile fruits are basically, made it so that they're wearing masks where they can't express emotions, that they can't take off for the rest of their lives. And they're locked into it. And there's been kind of debate and speculation on what's going to happen to the Ebisu citizens at the end of Wano. And some people are like, oh, Oda's going to go with the route of, once Kaido's defeated, they'll be able to smile, happily for the first time, and they're like fake emotions will be their true emotions, which is kind of cheesy. I'm not going to really be happy if it's going to be like, oh, they're still cursed by these fruits that they ate and they're still screwed over, but hey, they can actually smile happily now, so their inner emotions are actually, the same as their outer emotions. I hope it's not going to be that. And with how Chondro is presented as this weird blackish blob in the flashback that we did get when we first met Orochi, and he's like, oh, I take on whatever identity is required of me because I don't have one of my own. There's a really good opportunity there to kind of explore this idea of individual identity versus, collective identity and expressions and all that kind of stuff. But given that we are on the seeming climax right now, the raid is finally underway. They're seemingly going to be taking out Kaido soon. What are the chances they're going to actually explore that? That's one of the questions to bring up, because I'm firmly in the camp of the raid is going to fail because there is still too much left hanging in this arc that cannot be satisfactorily wrapped up in how many ever chapters, 30 or so chapters before I think people were speculating this would end. So I don't think that's possible. I might do another video about that once we get a few more chapters in. I might do another video talking about that speculation again with some other news we get up to. But yeah, I expect something from Chondro, whether it's a flashback, whether it's a fake out, something. I don't think his story will end here, but we'll have to wait and see. Damon Space says that bubble was the hat being placed on his corpse, the sound effect. God, all right, that makes a lot more sense. All right, I appreciate that correction. I totally missed that. Yeah, Kinemon took off his hat and kind of placed it over his face, I guess, as a sign of respect or something. So I guess that puts out the theory of it being a bubble or something. But yeah, I still don't buy the Chondro's dead, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, it's been way too long talking about that. Let's get to the next part. Completely unsurprising, of course, that the samurai and the ninjas have no loyalty to Orochi whatsoever. We already saw that with Fukurokujo, where he kind of switched loyalties to Orochi and abandoned, Oden and God, why can't I remember his last name? Yeah, but Oden's the Kozuki clan, he abandoned them. So I'm not too surprised that they have absolutely no loyalty to Orochi whatsoever. He's not the kind of guy that would expect anyone to be personally loyal to. And the ninjas being kind of cowards who are like, oh, thank God we don't have to fight Kaido, was really amusing. The point specifically I want to talk about with that, because it's related to something I was thinking a lot about this last week, was I mentioned way back when the Straw Hats and Law and the rest of the Alliance were making their way towards Onigashima. I pointed out that Oda had said in an interview he wants to really get in naval battles recently, and people were excited because they thought, oh, this was what he meant, the fight between Orochi's little goons outside Onigashima, guarding the island, the Straw Hats and the Alliance kind of doing their thing with Jinbei showing up. That was what must have been what Oda meant by a naval battle. And to me, it didn't feel grand enough for the scope of what Oda was seemingly talking about. And one of the things that always struck me as Oda was all right, Orochi demanded that CP0 pay him a battleship in exchange for the new weapons last time he met with them. which is when they got into the whole thing of like, oh, you're asking for too much. And he's like, oh, next time I'll ask for Vegapunk and all that. And I always thought it was weird that we haven't seen Orochi's battleship yet. Like during that 2 week, the 2 week span where they could have bought it in, deals could have been made. And I always thought it was kind of weird that Orochi wouldn't have shown off his battleship, because I don't think he's the kind of man that would have kept as an ace in his sleeve or a secret and pulled it out at the last minute. He would have wanted to show it off. So I always felt like it was kind of weird that he didn't do that yet. And I'm like, it seems kind of weird for Oda to mention he wants a battleship and then not involve it in any kind of naval battle and not involve it in this arc in any manner. But then that got me thinking about last week where I said, all right, if Orochi's not dead, what is his next move going to be? Like, if he really does have the 8 heads and you have to cut off all 8 of his heads to kill him, what is he going to do next if he, when he like gets up, managed to get away once Kaido's attention's distracted and everything else like that? And then I started wondering, all right, so now that we know that literally everyone he thought supported him is betraying him, what if Orochi gets pissed off enough to call in the Marines and ask them to come to Wano and eliminate everyone on there and completely destroy the island as revenge? And what if that's how he gets his battleship? I still feel like we are going to see a Marine presence at Wano in some fashion. And I always thought it would come through Drake, because he's part of SWORD. He told them all about the Alliance and everything else. But now that we know that Kaido and Big Mom are forming alliances, that they're forming a new pirate paradise, that they're going after one of the ancient weapons, I feel like this is something that Akainu can't just sit idly by on and be like, sorry guys, fingers are tied, or my hands are tied, I can't do anything. Oh, I know they're going after ancient weapons, but if I just had more power or whatever. So I feel like that's going to have to play out somehow with the Marines using a show of force, because I don't think they can let it stand that 2 of the emperors are going to be openly challenging the Marines to come at them and openly saying, hey, we're going after the ancient weapons to conquer the world. And the Marines are just going to kind of sit there and be like, well, we can't really do anything about it. So Orochi being the one that calls him to Wano instead of Drake would be an interesting little twist on that. But again, we'll have to wait and see if he's actually alive or not, and if he's going to do that. But that's the first thought that struck my mind last week, was like, we still haven't seen that. And the other point I wanted to bring up was, because Oda also mentioned in another interview that the Grand Fleet incident would happen like sometime relatively soon. So for me, taking that in conjunction with this whole, he wants to do naval battles, it would make more sense if the Marines showed up with a fleet of battleships to do a buster call on Wano to completely eliminate the island. And then, the Straw Hat Grand Fleet shows up for some reason, if I'm right, and the raid goes sideways. Straw Hat Grand Fleet shows up, Blackbeard and his forces show up. Then you could really have like an intense naval battle in Wano, and I think that would be really cool. But that's complete speculation up to this point, so I'll have to wait and see if that actually happens or not. I'm also mixed on Momo's whole speech and, the man who will be Shogun of Wano and everything like that. Because for most of it, until about Zou, I was really kind of like ambivalent on Momo, leaning more towards dislike. I'm just like, all right, he's not a particularly compelling or sympathetic character. But the speech in Zou, where he kind of finally admits that, he is a little kid, but that he wants to get revenge on Kaido because of, he killed his parents. That was one of the first times where he actually showed some kind of real vulnerability, and I actually started leaning a little bit more towards liking him. And then throughout Wano, he's been kind of just sidelined and coasting on his father's reputation. And the fact that Oda's kind of bringing up that idea that Momo is, being overshadowed by his father's reputation as being this great man and this great warrior, all of the stuff with my, apprehension of like how well Oda was portrayed aside. Again, like with the plot of Yamato saying, "Oh, I am Kozuki Oden," there's a lot of interesting ideas that could have been explored there with regards to, children not being beholden to the legacies of their father, similar again to Ace and Roger. And there could have been something interesting done with Momo with regards to Oden as well, where he's like, my father was a mythic figure. I am not going to be like him, but I will be a great leader in my own way. There could have been ways to kind of explore that idea and that theme. But again, Oda just kind of crammed it into this last little bit. And again, like putting in flashbacks to Momo's parents telling him, "Well, you're going to be great someday, son. We believe in you," all that. It's very tropey and cheesy to me, and it doesn't feel what's the word, sincere the way Oda's doing it. So like it's like that's when you have like the whole declaration of, "Oh, I'm Kozuki Momonosuke, the man will be shogun of Wano," and how he's still crying, almost Usopp like. I feel like Oda wants to evoke the same feelings that we should have, say, as with Usopp in Arlong Park, where he takes a stand. He says, I cannot be a coward anymore, or else how can I face my friends, after all this is over? I have to stand up for what I believe in. I feel like he's going for that same moment here, but because he sidelined him for so much, it really doesn't land with the impact he wanted it to. So I was like, all right, great moment character wise. I can see what you were going for, but I don't think it landed with the same impact as it should or could have. But minor stuff. God, I honestly hate the exploding handcuffs. Ever since Whole Cake Island, it's become a plot device. I just absolutely loathe. I'm glad it gave us at least the brilliant, like exaggerated Yamato face. That was awesome. I really loved that. But apart from that, Yamato getting all mad at Kaido not being a great father and exploding cuffs. Again, we haven't spent enough time with this character and we don't know enough about Kaido for that to have any sort of impact. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, oh my God, Kaido's a terrible father. Like, oh, what an asshole. Like, again, I'm just still very ambivalent towards a large swath of these characters introduced in Wano. And I'm hoping now that we're getting into the thick of it, I will finally get to the point where I will become more invested in them. But I don't know what's going to happen. I was thinking about Whole Cake Island recently, with regards to thinking about the climax of Wano coming up and everything, and we still haven't gotten Kaido's flashback yet, which is what makes me think that this is not really close to being over yet. Because I think even after we got Big Mom's flashback, there's still 20 to 30 chapters left of Whole Cake Island before the arc ended, and that was like a much smaller scope and scale than Wano is. So I'm wondering when we're going to get to the Kaido flashback, because I think that will be the point at which we'll really be getting into the climax of this arc proper, and we'll really be able to see the finale. So I'm waiting to see when that is and how that's going to make us sympathize with Kaido and his motives, because he really is still an enigma up to this point. Like, we don't really know why he wants to take over the world, what his motivations are, what the whole deal behind him being unkillable is. I know a lot of people are still speculating on, if Kaido's a dragon that ate the Oni fruit, or Kaido's a dragon that did this, or Kaido's a dragon that was the egg on Roger's ship, or something like that. There's been so much speculation on it, so I'm hoping we get answers on that sometime soon. And yeah, so last little bit before I wrap this up here. Again, going with my previous points, Kaido being like, oh my God, the Scours remind me of Oden. Again, doesn't land, I think, with the impact Oda intended, just because of how little effort he put into developing that relationship. Same with the Scourge, finally being able to get vengeance on Kaido by stabbing into him and knocking him off. And because if I was thinking, or if 986 is the chapter the editor said made him cry, only two moments I could think of that would potentially have been doing that was Momonosuke crying, thinking about his parents, and like, you know, flashing back to that. That didn't feel like it. The only other moment I could think of in this chapter that would have fit the bill is the Scabbards finally getting vengeance on Kaido. Again, it doesn't seem like a moment that would get someone super emotional. But if I started speculating, thinking about what could have been in relation to in 987, and I think my answer to that is going to be 987. I think is going to be the Scabbards after having knocked Kaido into the thing, prematurely celebrating, thinking that they finally got their vengeance for Oden, you know, that they've finally taken down Kaido, and that they're going to be able to, you know, open the borders of Wano, and there'll be like tears and celebrations and all that. And I feel like Kaido is going to be furious because I don't think the Scabbards I don't think the Scabbards did any tangible damage to Kaido, especially since Oden himself even noted that Kaido was probably going to get even stronger than when he faced him 20 years ago. So I feel like the two things I'm going to kind of theorize and speculate will happen in the next chapter is the Scabbards prematurely celebrating, thinking they took down Kaido, and Kaido getting mad because the Scabbards reminded him of Oden with kind of their energy and their auras, whatever. But Kaido will get mad because they did not measure up to Oden's strength. And because he's been looking for someone that, you know, can give him the challenge and the death he's looking for, I think it's going to make him mad that he got his hopes up when the Scabbards kind of embodied Oden's energy, or when they failed to capitalize on that kill him. I think that's going to make him furious, and I think he's going to get angry and start lashing out. That's going to be my two theories and speculation what's going to happen in the next chapter. We'll have to wait and see. The raid has finally begun. So hopefully like this is where the action starts ramping up. I still think it's going to have to end in failure at some point, but yeah, there's still too many variables to see. We'll have to see how this all plays out. That said, again, a very long One Piece reaction review, but I hope you all enjoyed watching me react to it, enjoyed my thoughts and everything else. As always, if you have any thoughts, comments, theories that you want to drop on me, speculate. If you disagree with anything I said, feel free to drop a comment below or hit me up on Twitter in my DMs. Like I said, I'll try to get the Yamato video out today, if not today, by tomorrow at the latest, hopefully. And as always, if you like my content, please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, this is Ash. Talk to you all later.